Bennett first on Zoom. Is she there, David? Or she might be in the room. Oh, yeah, she's on Zoom. Hi, Fiona. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no problem. So you've got, so you're here speaking in relation to item 14. You're comfortable with everything?
Yep.
Great, go for it.
Okay. Tēnā koutou, thank you for allowing me to speak this morning regarding agenda item 14, Climate Emergency Response Fund Transport Choices. While it is amazing to get funding to do infrastructure improvements that will increase active and public transport use, these projects should not delay some of the biggest emission reductions and safety improvement infrastructure projects in the process. Here's a map of the cycleways that were planned to be implemented several years ago. I live very, very close to the Wheels to Wings cycleway and can't wait to use it. I'm specifically talking about the Wheels to Wings Papanui ki Waiwhitu cycleway and the Lincoln Road public transport improvements between Curlitz Road and Wrights Road. All the projects listed in red by the staff in Appendix B should not be deferred, as the disadvantages outweigh the advantages of deferment. I'm disappointed that almost all of the surf projects are in one part of the city. We can go to the next slide now. There are none in the northwestern half of the city. This part of the city has next to no cycling infrastructure, as you can see by this map, currently provided by City Council. And this part of the city, it has a huge population post-earthquake, and it's just not good enough. Please don't defer any projects which could save lives through safety improvements, such as the cycleway, traffic signals, such as Greers Road, Langdons Road, and the intersection upgrade Greers Road, Northcote Road, Sawyers Arms Road. These are all very dangerous, and there's no alternative. If you're trying to cycle the back streets, you still have to cross Greers Road somewhere, and it's basically impossible. Please employ more staff. If you've got the capacity to employ more staff with this funding, I don't know if it's an option, but please do. There is not enough information provided in the total cost as to how that plays out in terms of time required in planning, design, consultation, and construction. The total fee doesn't give you an idea of where the capacity of the staff lies. It is therefore very hard to justify deferring a project that is close to construction, such as the curb upgrades along Aorangi Road and Matson's Ave alongside the Norwest Arc cycleway. If these projects are so close to completion and implementation, construction, why would you defer them to do something that's on the other side of the city, which it just seems so unfair that everything is on the southeastern side of the city. There's absolutely nothing on the northern half of the city. If we can jump to the next slide. This is a service provided by a camera software where you put a camera on your bike and you upload footage of near misses, crashes, close passes, all these kind of things. Note how most of them on the western half of the city, and this is where there is no cycling infrastructure. It is desperately, desperately needed to save lives. If we can go to the next slide, please. Sorry, I can't see my timer, so I don't know how much longer I've got. And if we could,
you've got about 7.5 minutes, Fiona.
Okay, cool. If we could watch I don't know if the link's going to work, but if we could watch the first one, please.
Yeah, we'll see if the team can do that.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I couldn't embed them.
No, that's okay. No worries. We'll see if we can. I don't think we're going to be able to.
This is a selection. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to work. It's a selection of videos from across the city. So here we've got a cycle lane. This is proof that paint is not protection.
What the Hey!
So clearly the cyclist is in the blind spot and the driver didn't even look. This is why we need protected cycleways all around the city. Just in some of the city, all of it. Can we watch the next one, please? Sorry, it's going to be a bit clunky with this part. So this is the main North Road, so just around the corner from where the cycleway would be. And again, so in lieu of proper cycling infrastructure, we've got a cyclist in the bus lane, which is completely legal. And someone comes out, doesn't look for a cyclist, pulls right in front of them. That's not acceptable. Again, protected cycle infrastructure would prevent that from killing a cyclist. Cool, we can go to the next video. Once again, we've got a painted cycle lane. Paint is not protection. Drivers don't seem to notice how close they get on their left-hand side. They're only looking at their right-hand side. As we get closer up to the next little traffic island, you'll see a very close pass. That happens on that corner basically every single day, every time I go through it. The driver is so focused on their side of the car that they don't know how close they are to the cyclist on the other side of their car. They don't know that they need to give us 1.5 meters. Cool, we can go to the next video. And here's a place with no infrastructure at all. You might recognize it as Whakaritenga Road. So the current alternative to biking down Herwood Road, which is terrifying, is Whakaritenga Road. Of course, this intersection with Farringdon, not the best. That happens every single day too. Cool, thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much for that, Fiona. That was really useful. We have got time for questions. I should just note, and it's probably useful for the other deputations on this issue, that staff have been working because of some changes with the NZTA funding overnight. So we've actually got a revised resolution anyway, which may address the concerns you've raised, Fiona. But does anyone have any questions? Celeste? Yeah.
Hi, Fiona. Thanks for the presentation. I just wondered, in regards to your experiences cycling across the city, have you tried cycling out to the eastern suburbs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mostly stick to QE2 Drive and Anzac Drive. I don't go much beyond that because it's pretty dangerous. But yeah, same experience, hey?
Yeah.
No infrastructure.
No, none whatsoever. Yeah. So thank you so much for your submission. I agree that we definitely need to get a citywide network.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yanni.
Thank you. And thank you for the information. I was just interested in the map that you showed where the incidences are. And it looks like the central city has the most amount of red and yellows. Are you able just to give us some understanding of where those locations are and what you think the solution would be to address those? Because is that famous in Chilm Street? On the map, it looks like it's St. Estevens.
Yeah, if we can go back to that, there are several along the cycleways where, like for one of them it was the one that was in the media about the cyclist was in the main part of the road, for example, instead of the cycleway, but they were going the speed limit. But for some reason, the driver behind them decided to ram them from behind and make them fall off their bike. So some of them are just like lots of those kind of incidents where it's like a close call or a complete incident. Sorry, if we I'm trying to find it on my side to zoom in a bit, but I won't be able to share my screen. So I haven't looked at every single video. Some of them it's cyclist error, but a lot of them it's the driver
I guess
didn't check.
At a general sense, what I found concerning about that graph is it shows where we do have separated cycle lanes generating a number of serious risks to cyclists. And so that raises a huge flag for me, particularly in that central city area where there's been lots and lots of money, huge amounts of money put into safer cycle lanes, and it doesn't appear to be showing that that's what people are experiencing. Yeah,
I mean, the vast majority is actually Lincoln Road itself, which, yes, there's an alternative, but it's very slow. So for some people, we want to go 35 k's an hour, and going on a cycleway is not an option. So yeah, I think that Chilm Street and St. Esther Street need to be reviewed and need to have another safety audit done because I don't find them very effective. It's fine if you want to dawdle down the street at 15 k's an hour, but most of us don't. Yeah, sorry, I can give you a link.
No, I think you've proved. Yeah, no, that's Fiona. That's been very useful. Thank you very much for your time. So
thank you.
We'll get to that item later today as well. All right, next up, Ellen Taunt. Is Ellen here? Great, come on through. Come on up, Ellen. Alan, I'm not sure if you've been in before, but there's a 10-minute limit on deputations. So if you've got any time for questions at the end, just stop a bit earlier. And there'll be a timer come up on the screen.
How's that? Right, yeah, thanks team for the opportunity to speak here. There is some previous, where we've jumped in at slide 6, so whoops. Oh. Yeah, let's start at the start, eh? Sounds good. Right, so I'm just going to give a bit of a talk about here why the MCR program has got to continue without delay. In this PowerPoint, I can show some examples of some really dangerous things that happen on the road. Unfortunately, I haven't got the videos, but they're much the same as the ones that Fiona showed. And you know, people's lives are at risk, so we really need to continue with the program. But with the cycleways, we get people biking. That reduces carbon emissions, which is the focus of the agenda item. People biking, brings health benefits. We should be doing like 30 minutes physical activity a day, to keep the old heart going and that sort of thing. Good for the mind as well. And the other big thing that I like about cycling is it connects communities. So every day when we're biking, we get to see people, say hello, and that sort of thing. Smile and wave, and it's a great way to start the day. So what I'll do is I'll jump into some of the dangers that I see, and I'll just talk through these quickly. I haven't got the timer, so I'm not too sure how far through I'm. 8 minutes, thanks. Oh, good. So let's go to the next slide, or should I control it? Okay. Yep. Okay, so this is a location west of Breens Road on Harewood Road, and we've got a car door zone on the left-hand side, and I had a really close pass from a truck, so close the handlebars were shuddering. You can't quite see it in that photo, but there is also another person biking ahead of me. They also got a reasonably close pass. I will share the actual videos afterwards, but rest assured that was really, really scary. Now there was plenty of opportunity for the driver to change lane. He had plenty of advanced warning, and there was plenty of room because there's two lanes there, but it simply doesn't happen. We get the close passes. Yeah, so I contacted the company. Company were all good about it. The driver made a mistake. It was just a genuine mistake. I flicked back some of my old videos. I saw exactly the same truck in a different location on the same road, and they made a change lanes to pass me. So it was just a moment. But those moments can have serious consequences. And of course, with Vision Zero, we've got to make safe systems because mistakes happen. Yeah, you just got to imagine how scary that is. If we flick on to the next slide. Yeah. So once again, we've got another situation, and this is happening at speed. It's the speed is in excess of the 50 k's, and we've got another driver that on the left of me was a couple of vehicles. So my lane position has to be there. We've got another vehicle coming up. I'm wanting to get out of the door zone for that vehicle. You can't quite see it, but that's a city council vehicle. So I'm sure the staff there are well aware of looking before opening the door. So yeah, but at the time, you're biking and you get this close pass going beside you. That's well closer than half a metre. If I reach my arm out, I'd be touching that vehicle. We can also see if we look down that road, there isn't actually too many vehicles on the side of the street. Driver could have just waited a second, or should have changed the lanes. You can see the volume traffic's not high. We'll flick through the next one. We'll keep it going. This is just by the railway crossing, again on Harewood Road. Again, there's vehicles to the left of me, and this vehicle passed a bit close. Thing to note there, the train tracks are on an angle, so you actually want to be further out so that you try and cross the angles with more of a perpendicular approach, because if you're too far left and you move right, you're further compounding that parallelism with the railway tracks. So hopefully we'll get Kiwi Rail to help out with that one. We'll flick through to the next one. This is approaching Bishopdale, the Bishopdale roundabout. If staff were to monitor that little section of cycle lane, you would see that cars just drive in that cycle lane frequently. The video actually shows the driver getting quite close to me. They just moved left. I'm not 100% sure the driver was actually focused in that situation, because they were a little bit slow off the mark and just sort of drifted a bit left. But yeah, anyway, it happens. The other thing to note with that roundabout, it's some 30 metres from where you enter the roundabout and get past the first exit onto Farrington Ave. On a bike, when you're cycling and it's a standing start, that takes quite a little bit of time to get past that first exit. Meanwhile, it's a large roundabout, so you've got cars whipping around quite fast. So if you're not out of the way of the cars coming around the roundabout, it can be a bit dangerous. We'll flick on to the next one. Thanks. I have about three videos that are really dangerous like this. This is on Waiariki Road. Quite often people say, oh, well, why don't you put the cycleway down Waiariki Road? Well, to be honest, dangerous things like this happen everywhere. And this is a corner on Waiariki Road, and if you examine the corner, you can see that cars cut it frequently. This car approached me from behind and cut it really close. Again, at speed. It was really scary. Now, as the driver goes past, sometimes when you're riding your bike, you react. So in the video, it shows me just reaching my hand out. I tend not to run the noise on the video. However, because this is so frequent, put my hand out, and all I said was, okay. That's all I said, because, it just happens too often. That's really scary. That could have been a fatality. If we flick on to the next one, rightio. Okay, what we know, cycleways are climate action. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. We can put in cycleways, people can jump on their bikes today, Cycleways are well used, but the key thing is they're used by a variety of people. When I'm out biking, I can see, caregivers taking their children to preschool and kinder. Without cycleways, we never would have had that happen. There's a growing number of micro-mobility devices, and I'm thinking the main thing we're seeing growth in is e-scooters. We've got e-scootering around on the footpath really fast. That puts pedestrians in danger. So, we need to get those e-scooters into cycleways. That would make it safer for all. The MCR program delivers more than cycleways. It delivers crossings, pedestrian crossings, and extra sets of lights. Like on Harewood Road, we're going to see some extra lights there. So it's for cycleways are for everyone in the community. We get improved curbing, we get improved lighting.
30 seconds now.
30 seconds,
yep.
Rightio. Vision Zero, cycleways are part of that. And some of our areas are missing cycleway infrastructure, mainly the north, northwest and east. If we flick on to the next one, I'm going to pick out a point down there. We need climate change accountability in every decision that we make. So we shouldn't be
Great.
We shouldn't be dropping these off.
Thank you. That was perfect timing. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
I'll pass the slides on to the staff.
We've got them on our system already. So.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
I hope you like it, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Cheers.
And
Beauty.
making the effort. Don Bade from Spokes. Great. Welcome, Don. Welcome back, Don.
Thank you.
Same thing. 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Lovely, thank you. Just before I start, Yanni's point earlier about the increased accidents on the cycleway, it's very, very well documented. When you get more cyclists, you do get more accidents. It's just a matter of the fact that you've got that many more on the road. The thing about the more accidents is that it's a lower proportion of the number cycling. So where you see a lot of cyclists, you will get more cyclists being hurt just because there's more of them there. So that's the reason why we're seeing accidents on cycleways. And yes, probably the cycleways could be tweaked a little bit and improved, but if you've got more people using them, you will have more accidents. So now to my bit. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I want to discuss the proposal to make adjustments to the work program to accommodate the SURF funding available from central government. Now, I don't know what the staff came up with overnight, but well, this is working from what your agenda had. There were three main points. The government will want more outcomes from their funding, not a rearrangement of your 10-year plan. All cycleways contribute to reducing VKT and therefore emissions. Some projects that are being considered for deferral will use different skills than the additional ones because of the stage in their life cycle. So first of all, government funding. The SURF funding is a contribution from central government, so more climate beneficial projects can be delivered, especially in the transport sector. It would be counterproductive if projects already being planned were held back so the extra funding could be used. The council have already decided which projects have the most merit and are proceeding with them. This is part of the planning process. Without being privy to their discussions, I would imagine that the extra funding from government is to encourage councils to consider more of the projects that they have not yet commenced and do them earlier. Secondly, cycleways reduce VKT, vehicle kilometres travelled. The figures from the numerous cycle counters in and around the city show that the completed cycleways are being well used. Those that access schools could easily reduce 2 car trips for every one counted on a cycle, as parents are not going to and from to deliver and collect their child. The city centre is a lot more vibrant because of the number of people that access the city by bike. If they were to use cars, there'd be a lot more congestion, so the city wouldn't feel as nice, and that would be compounded because half the cars would be driving around looking for a parking space, and that just adds to the congestion a lot. There will be some reduction in emissions as more electric cars are taken up, but it is likely these gains alone will not be sufficient to meet our emission targets. Trips have to be foregone or changed to another mode to make the difference. Mode change is accelerated by better alternatives being available. Third point, phasing of projects. The projects that will be delivered or plan to be delivered under the SURF funding will have to move very fast to go through the design, consultation and construction in the next 16 months. Some of the projects being considered for deferral are already well through these steps. It would seem that construction could be carried out whilst the accelerated projects move through the design and consultation phases, using both internal and external council resources. There is a long history we're coming back to the wheels to wings now, which is one of the ones which was sort of highlighted as maybe needing to be deferred. There is a long history of the council action to get a cycleway on Harewood Road, dating back to, I think it was about 2009, when children from a school in the area made a deputation to ask for safer access to their school. Some of these children may have children of their own by now, and they're still waiting for progress. Any further deferral makes these children's voices meaningless. I recall Phil Clearwater chairing the committee that was responsible for the decisions to construct the cycleways back in 2014. Here we are 8 years later, still discussing a safe connection between our city and our airport, which is aspiring to be carbon neutral for visitors, workers and travellers who wish to cycle. Spokes Canterbury supports the choices the council have made in terms of priorities during their annual planning process. And if there is a chance to do more at the behest of the government, then so be it. But our choices come first, a little bit like the government-imposed building requirements, I think. This will produce the best outcomes in terms of emission reduction, safety and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don, for that. That's a really useful presentation. And as I mentioned before, Lynette and the team will have an update this afternoon around some of the changes that actually NZTA have imposed in the last couple of days, which have affected the report. So we have got time for questions if anyone does have any. But again, you're very comprehensive. So, Aaron.
Don, those children you referred to asking to get to school back in 2009 and onwards, I believe are from Breens Intermediate, that couldn't cross Herwood Road. Do you think that those traffic lights they asked for more than a decade ago should have been installed by now so those kids could have walked and biked to school? Because I'm sure most of them are driving to high school or university now.
Oh, they've been even past some of them. Yeah, obviously, intermediate schools are great for cycling. You know, that's the age when kids are really good at cycling. They've become traffic aware. They haven't got the social pressure that happens at high school, where there seems to be a drop off in cycling at high school. It's not the cool thing to do. You're getting up to getting your driver's license, so you want to be the cool kid. But intermediate schools are a prime example. So yes, anything you can do to get children to bike to school should be done as early as possible.
Absolutely. And the other one I'll ask, because you did raise it about it not being the cool thing to do. The rhetoric around cycleways and pro cycling, and there seems to be a division in the city, as you'll know, it's too often being sold as being dangerous. Do you think that's good language to use around cycling? Because I don't see cycling as dangerous. I see it as fun and cool. Why are the cycling advocates not trying to push fun and cool more than it being dangerous? Because I think dangerous puts people off.
Yeah, it's because of that division of...
Build us more cycleways because more of us want to get out and do it because it's fun and cool, rather than, you have to build them because everyone's going to die.
No, it depends on your target market.
Yeah.
You've biked a bit, I've biked a bit. We're in the sort of courageous group, if you like. What we've really got to do, if we want to make any difference at all, is look at those interested but concerned. And safety is their number one priority. And I used to think that safety was a cover-up because mum couldn't be bothered getting out of bed 5 minutes earlier to get the kids ready to go on their bike.
Agree.
But I don't think it is. Research has actually shown that the safety thing is big. And, the last thing you want to do is be the mother who sent the children off to school on their bike and got the phone call at 9:30, oh, little Johnny didn't make it. So, those issues are big. So safety is real big.
Great,
Thank you, Aaron. Yanni, and then we're going to move on. Yep.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to kind of understand the intent of your deputation, because you talked about our planning should inform what we do. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Linwood project that's been recommended for deferral now by staff was based on a citywide assessment, and it had the highest need. But I guess really the question I'd like to really understand from you is, we've got the choice to do more by rephasing and taking on the government money, or we've got the choice to do less by not rephasing and doing what we're currently doing, which means ultimately we lose the ability to do some of those projects that have been put forward for removal from the government funding. So is your kind of submission that we should do less and not rephase versus do more and rephase?
No, my solution is magic because I don't have to do it. My solution is just do them all.
Right.
It's just got a matter of juggling things to make them work. Rephasing is all very well, but sometimes you've just got to bite the bullet and say, well, okay, the opportunity's here. Let's get on and just do it. And if that means that you need to do, and I know there's problems with the recruiting staff and all that kind of thing at the moment. It's not easy, but you've just got to look around and do as much as you can and wring as much out as you can. To say that you're going to defer now without really giving it a good shot, I think would be detrimental.
Okay, thank you, Yanni. And thank you, Don, for coming in. That's much appreciated. We'll get to the item later in the day.
Thank you.
Great. next up, we've got Celia. Celia Hogan, do you want to come on up? Great. So again, I'm not sure if you've been in before, but same thing. A 10-minute window, and the floor is yours.
Am I controlling the slides from here or someone else? Yeah, I will. Cool. Kia ora koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Celia Hogan toko ingoa. Great to be here today. A couple of evenings ago, I was happily scrolling social media and I came across a disturbing post. And while some posts are frequently disturbing and full of misinformation about cycleways and the benefits of these on our cities, it was actually Council Templeton's post that shared. Last Tuesday, councillors had a briefing on the W2W cycleway, its design and other options looked at, the extensive consultation process, and why staff do not recommend deferring it. So as a ratepayer and person who enjoys supporting healthy, safer cities, I felt rather frustrated at this. I'm not clear on the reasons why this has been re-voted on, as it was voted on last year after a considerable process. So I've literally seen a Facebook post and decided I'm going to do a deputation. I have no background information as to how that decision has come about. So just full disclosure there. But so as far as doing a deputation, I was unclear, what my focus should be because I haven't gone into huge details about this. But I thought, maybe I should talk about the international research on cycleways in cities that states the biggest barrier to cycling is perceived safely, as Don referred to. Segregated cycleways are key to feeling safe, and infrastructure should be a mix of separate cycling facilities along roads with heavy traffic and at intersections combined with extensive traffic calming of residential neighbourhoods, coupled with lower speed limits. Or should I talk about how lower speeds reduce death road numbers? The statistics show that road deaths have fallen by 30% in the areas covered in Phase 1 for an Auckland area. In comparison, road deaths in Auckland areas with unchanged speed limits have gone up by 9%. That is a difference of 39%, says Auckland Transport Safety Technical Lead, Ping Sim. A hard, fast fact which cannot be ignored. Or I could talk about the pollution and our goals to reduce emissions that were not only set by the Ministry of the Environment in the first emission reduction plan, but also as a council you have outlined in your annual plan that climate change is one of the 4 key focus areas. With the adaptation, and also actually the current long-term plan states that with the adaptation of the Kia Turo Te Ao or Te Tahi Climate Resilience Strategy 2021, we have a framework for action that will help Christchurch reach the target of net zero emissions by 2045. Or should I talk about the changing landscape of road users with a significant increase in e-bike use over the last few years? In fact, there's about... am I on the right one? That one there. About 75,000 units were imported in 2021, which is up from 23,000, which was in 2017. So it's quite a significant change in the road users and the speeds that people can also travel. Or should I talk about the experts who are employed by the Christchurch City Council, who you also call on for much of your decision-making data? They advised you on Tuesday to continue with the project. Or should I talk about how much of a waste of time and money it would be if you deferred? Or I could talk about the physical and mental health benefits regular biking has on the health of the population. New Zealanders who walk or cycle as their main activity each day have a 76% higher chance of achieving the Ministry of Health physical activity guidelines than those who drive cars. Or should I talk about how it can add transport capacity to already busy roads? In fact, imagine the opposite. Imagine that there were no cyclists on our Christchurch roads right now. And if all the people who currently cycled stopped cycling, imagine how many more cars would be on the roads congesting and jamming and causing delays. So if you allow me to be a little bit cheeky for a moment, cycling is actually helpful to all the petrol heads out there. It gives you a faster access to your roads and speeds up your journey. Very cheeky, but you get what I'm saying. So, which one should I talk about? Maybe I could just talk a little bit about my own cycling experience, because I grew up cycling to and from school. I was an 80s child. I went to Burnside High School. I lived on Aorangi Road. And then halfway through high school, we moved out to Harewood, and I lived near Willowbank. Now, I tried to ride to school from Willowbank, but the roads were so fast. There were no cycle lanes. In fact, it was 80 kilometre an hour roads down there. And I pretty much stopped, and that was that. There was no cycling for me thereafter. But in my 20s, I got back on my bike, and I was able to commute from St Albans into town where I worked. I then spent 10 years living in the UK and Europe. And in London, I cycled to work for 6 years, an hour each way. I started cycling when cycling was just starting in London, and Boris Bikes came in. So year on year, I saw an increase of cycle numbers of riders. And this is also captured in the data, which states that 87,000 cyclists per day in 2005 through to 182,000 cyclists per day in 2016, which is the year that I left. So I saw a huge increase. London's not perfect, but it is getting there. I would also read in the papers over there the same problems as here. People wanting to get rid of cycleways, wanting to save money, not bother. Climate change isn't a problem, all that same stuff. But the cyclists keep coming, and the foresight of those who fought was great for that city, and it continues to improve its cycleway infrastructure. I've been back in New Zealand now for 8 years, and I spent a lot of time commuting and recreating on my bike. I'm pretty confident on my bike, but I know that many aren't. Now, as a parent, I'm acutely aware of the impact a car would have on my children's lives. This photo here was a video, but I couldn't embed it for whatever reason, is my daughter talking to me and telling me about the close call that we'd just had coming around the corner. And I asked her, what was happening? And she goes, they didn't give us enough room as we were coming around the corner. And she was kind of saying, they just need to stop and slow down. Those were her words. Sorry, I can't replay that video for you. We do our best to cycle around to school, to shops, to tennis, to the park, and yet often I have to talk to my children about the close calls that we have and to be vigilant. The other day, they went on the road and I watched them, or we were all on the road, and I watched them suddenly jump up onto the footpath, and it was because we could hear this fast car coming from behind us, and there were cars parked on the road. There was no cycleway to help keep them safe. They made a good decision, though, by jumping up fast. However, at 7 years and 9 years old, they shouldn't have to be that worried about their safety. The other thing I could talk about is votes and quick wins, because one of the big issues nationally is I see that voters, will...
2 minutes now, just so you're aware.
Thank you. One party will implement something. It will be based on good research, specialists, experts, and with a thorough consultation process. Then the next party comes in and wipes it, all because they said that they would scrap that as part of their campaign and possibly as a way to win votes, without any real thought for the actual benefits of said project. So one of my observations is that sometimes happens here in local government. As a ratepayer and voter, it really frustrates me that winning votes can seem to trump the experts and the research that's out there. Christchurch City Council members have given you advice, and it would be great to acknowledge that. The hearings panel, full recommendations were considered by the Council in July 2022. The Council's approval of the panel's recommendations means that projects have moved into the detailed design phase. The funding is there for Wheels to Wings. It has gone through a robust process, and then to come back and suggest delaying it, I'm not exactly sure why, but it sounds like it's all to do with money. So I urge councillors to make this decision based on the staff recommendations to continue rather than choosing to delay Wheels to Wings. This has so many benefits to our community, as outlined by other deputations, the environment, and also our overall health. Additionally, I've been made aware that the Finance and Performance Committee want to defer stage of one of the Ōtākaro Avon Route MCR. As previous co-chair for Greening the Red Zone, we campaigned tirelessly years to activate the Red Zone, and we supported all walking and cycleways, which were complementary to the vision of the Red Zone and the plan approved by the Minister Megan Woods. So cyclists are here to stay, and as all other road users, and as there are many different road users, your job as council is to ensure that all road users are safe, not just your own personal preference, and that emissions targets are not only met but taken seriously. I urge all councillors to vote in support of continuing with Wheels to Wings cycleway and not defer this or the Otakaro Avon route MCR.
Thank you
Kia
very
ora.
much. That was perfect timing, so appreciate you coming in.
Kia ora.
Excellent. David Duffy. Is David here? Great, come on up, David. So same thing, 10 minutes, the floor is yours.
And Murray James from Richmond Residents Business Association.
Kia ora koutou.
Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you this morning. It's a sense of deja vu sitting here talking about this, our Richmond Greenway cycle route. And I just want to go back through a little bit of the history behind that. The previous speakers have outlined extremely well the perils of cycling, the need for cycleways, the current trends, the growth of that kind of transport, etc. So I'm not going to dwell on that, except to endorse what they've said. Our Greenways Cycle Project is one of many that the RRBA are currently working on, and it's somewhat unique in that it was proposed by the community, it was researched by the community, the plan was put together by the community, and the consultation was carried out by the community, to the point where we were very confident in coming to the council with a proposal to install what we called at that time a Richmond cycle safety route. It had all the qualities that are in behind the building of cycleways. Our main reason, I guess, for looking at it in the first place was the safety of cyclists using Shirley Road and Hills Road. And quite frankly, it is not safe for a cyclist to use Shirley Road and Hills Road, particularly at peak traffic times, with buses pulling out of bus stops, cars negotiating other cars, turning right-hand into a right-hand corner on a one-lane street, the sheer volume of the traffic, delivery trucks stopping parked over cycleways, simply not a safe environment. So we came up with a plan which took our cyclists from the Palms corner at Martians Road through to Fitzgerald Ave, through the back streets of if you like, of Richmond. This went to the council in November 2019. So you might be able to understand a little bit of frustration as to why we still haven't got our Greenway cycle route. However, we have had a series of meetings with the transport folk in council, and gradually the plan was formulated. It got bogged down by Cyclone COVID, and then we've got to the point now where we do have a plan that can be put in place and the cycleway constructed. It's a relatively cheap exercise in relation to a lot of the other cycleways, and it still has all those qualities that are associated with successful cycleways and route choice options. Just going back to our collaboration with the council, I'd just like to mention that we're grateful for the reception we've always received from that group that we've been working with, and particularly Michael Ferrigo, who has been working on the plan for us from there. So I guess what we really want to say is, please get on with it. And that's it in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. Can now, this is, unless you found it. Okay, all right, Jake, do you want to go first? Yeah.
Oh, thanks for coming along and outlining how important this project is. It's certainly something you guys have mentioned to me a lot.
Yeah.
You guys must be delighted that this is essentially in our work program today to be funded.
Yep. We may have to just add a little bit to our plan, in that we may be asking for umbrella bins at either end of Dudley Street.
Yeah.
So that the cyclists are protected from the starlings.
Yeah. And we'll deal with that issue as well. But I think this is a good win for you and the community, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that here today. So thank you for coming along.
And we'd also like to put a plug in for the Avon Otakaro part of the cycleway plan too. We see that as a pretty vital part for people travelling across Richmond.
Let's add a heap of emphasis to that if we can, because it's already a route that's well used. The amenities just poor. Think of the improved vitality of actually delivering that, encouraging people to use that route. It's full of really interesting, exciting places to go, Richmond being one of them, and we want to make sure, of course, that that amenity is on our side of the river rather than the other. I know a lot of work's already been done on that, but we just can't emphasise that enough. Around the community garden, Avery House, all the way down there, it's already vibrant, but it can be so much more. Now's the opportunity with extra funding that sounds like could be available. There's some pretty good bang for buck in that space.
Pauline?
Oh yeah, look, I just want to thank you for coming in and definitely support everything you people are doing there and your comments about the cycleway as well. And just to appreciate that, it is the Otakaro cycleway is up for deferral for a year, but staff are saying that the completion date won't change. So you have to appreciate that we have to have a citywide lens when we look at all the projects and juggle them round, but it is definitely a priority. Thank you.
Okay. Dinner.
Great. Okay, well, thank you both for coming in. I must admit, at the beginning you had me worried because you were talking about a project being cancelled, but actually we're bringing it forward. So it's kind of one of those good news stories. So thank you very much for coming in.
We just want to maintain the momentum.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's one on the chopping block today, so I think you're safe. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tēnā koutou.
Next up, we have Francis Johnson from Extinction Rebellion, and I don't know if you've got other people with you that want to come on up. So same thing, I know you've been in before, so 10 minutes and the floor is yours.
Have it in the microphone on.
Yeah.
Okay. Kia ora. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. We support the Council proceeding with the Wheels to Wings cycle route with haste, and certainly not delaying it, deferring it, or in any other way weakening it. Shortly, Faye will talk you through what we see as the many benefits of cycling infrastructure and hence of the cycle route in question. But first, let me tell you why we think it is so important. The awful disaster of Cyclone Gabrielle is bringing an important message home to more and more people. Climate change is devastating and it's here now. Scientists tell us it will get progressively worse if we continue with our business as usual, high emissions ways of doing things. And what does this mean? Well, try to imagine storms even worse than Gabrielle. Imagine them becoming a regular, very unwelcome part of our lives. And remember, Christchurch isn't immune from destructive storms. Imagine fires much worse than the Port Hills fires we've already had. All of this it's just terrifying. It's a scenario we have to do everything we can to avoid. We agree with a key statement made by the Council in its 2021 document, Christchurch Climate Resilience Strategy. That document states, and I quote, "Climate change is the biggest challenge of our time." In that document, the climate states its target of achieving net zero emissions by 2045 and halving its emissions by 2030. It explains that to achieve these targets, we all have to make changes in many areas of our lives, and this includes making big changes to the way we travel. Yes, we agree, climate change is a huge issue, and yes, we have to make big changes. In fact, it's hard to grasp the breadth and depth of the changes we have to make to reduce our emissions. But it's even harder to imagine the horror of living in the world that we end up with if we don't do that. So I tell you that to set the context. In this context, it's unthinkable that the council would even consider doing anything to diminish its cycleway projects. Car use is a substantial part of our emissions that are driving this devastation. Our emissions per person are very high by global standards, and we should be pulling our weight. We can't avert an even bigger climate disaster without substantially reducing our car use. We can't achieve the council's goals without substantially reducing our car use. And so, we need you. We need the council to provide infrastructure for convenient, attractive, and safe alternatives to cars. The IPCC has been telling us that we have to drastically reduce our emissions this decade. Climate scientists tell us that if we continue emitting, the effects of climate change will just keep getting worse and worse and worse. This means that reducing emissions in the future will be harder, not easier, than it is to do now. The best time to reduce emissions is now, and you can do this today by voting not to defer the Wheels to Wings cycleway project. Okay.
Kia ora koutou. Kari actually wrote this part of it, but she's not well today, so I'm going to be presenting it. There have been lots of other fantastic speakers today, and it's interesting to hear some of the issues about whether cycling should be promoted as something that's safe or something that's scary. As a cyclist myself, I find it to be both. I find it sometimes to be safe and fabulous, and other days to be really scary. And when I was filling in a council form one time, I was like, they said, do you find it safe? And I'm like, I want to say I find it safe because I want it to be safe, because I want to promote it. When I was a teenager, I used to cycle to school, but if I was a teenager these days, I don't know that that would be a possibility. It's just so busy on the roads these days, and often quite dangerous and scary. Yeah. The Wheels to Wings cycle route, like others, will help emissions in a way that can make travel more affordable, especially for those who are least able to adapt to increasing fuel costs. It can become part of a network of safe, effective, active travel routes that we need to have in place throughout the city before the end of this decade. Although public transport is vital, good personal transport like cycles give people a choice and flexibility, which is always valuable, and even more so in epidemic times. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is not the only reason. We need our streets to be safe for people of all ages to travel by foot, by bike, and by other means. Issues of safety have been discussed. The Netherlands is a good example with a high rate of cycle travel on excellent infrastructure. Drivers there are generally supportive. They're both because they're cyclists themselves and also they value the safety of their children. We need a safe cycle network to reduce the air pollution from car exhausts that kills a lot more people than collisions do. We need the route because cycling is fabulous and keeping moving is good for our health. Overseas experience has shown that retailers often initially oppose cycleway projects, but they find that they end up increasing their custom. There are many businesses served by the Wheels to Wings route that people would cycle to if they could. The connection to the underpass at the airport and especially adds to its value. Build it, the cyclists will come and the retailers will be happy. The sooner you build it, the sooner we get the benefits. Given the accelerating climate crisis and ecological issues, the likely supply disruptions and rising fuel prices, we need this cycle route in the future Deferring this complex process risks losing momentum and adding to overall costs. Rather than delaying the Wings to Wheels cycle route to free up staff resources, we believe you should employ more staff for this project and the future cycle infrastructure we urgently need. Christchurch now has some really good and well-used routes thanks to decisions made by councillors in previous years, including some of you. At the airport end of Harewood Road is the State Highway No. 1 underpass, giving access to the airport and businesses that have established out there. The Northern Line cycleway provides speedy access from the city to other end of Harewood Road at Papanui. The Wheels to Wings cycleway would complete a safe cycling link from the city to the airport area. There is no other safe cycling route to the airport, so the Wheels to Wings cycleway is an overdue and desperately needed part of the city's cycling infrastructure. As councillors, you have the opportunity to lead the city in a good decision by prioritising this project. A vote to expedite the Wheels to Wings cycle route is a vote for saving lives in Christchurch, saving them from collisions, from lung disease, and from climate disruption. We urge you to not delay in any way. Kia ora.
Great, thank you very much for that presentation. That was very useful. I just had one question just to clarify in my mind, because it's unfortunate the Wheels to Wings and the surf have been conflated into two issues. So just so I'm really clear, you want the Wheels to Wings to proceed, but in terms of the other items we're deferring in cycleways, you're okay with that? Or
I don't actually have a clear answer about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think
No, that's fine.
deferring any cycleways seems madness to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate that. Great. Thank you.
I just have one question, Sam.
Oh, Yanni, we're out of time. We've got to move on. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Out of time. Thank you.